This is Fabiano Caruana, Italian-American, playing under the Italian Federation, world-class, elite player. This is Mickey Adams, from England, world-class, elite player. Hi folks, John Cordisco back with another great chess video for you. This is going to be, it's a really good game actually. It starts off pretty boring, but it's a great game between Fabiano Caruana, American playing under the Italian flag, and Mickey Adams from England as black. It's a great game. It's round 3 of the 41st Dortmund tournament, played on July 28th, 2013. Caruana is white, Mickey Adams from England is black. Let's get right to it. E4 for Caruana. It's going to end up being a Berlin defense. Now don't turn off the video yet because most Berlins are very boring, but I think this one is extremely instructional. Knight to f6, castles, pawn takes, we all know this, we've seen it a million times. Bishop takes, d-pawn takes, d-pawn takes. Knight to f5. I'll just breeze through this because this is so well known. Queen takes, king takes, h3, bishop d7, rook to d1, king to c8, g4, king to e7, or excuse me, knight to e7, knight to g5, bishop to e8. Those of you that don't know the Berlin, this seems very odd, but this is all theory. All of it. f4, h5, king to f2, b6, f5, king to b7, knight to c3, h takes g4, h takes g4, rook checks, king to g3. Right now I've got my Fritz 13 computer on, and I hate to go through the moves so quick like that, but it's pretty much standard Berlin. The only thing I wanted to mention was back on White's move when he went from, on his White's 14th move, went to f2. You're going to see later that pretty much was his doom. Now the computer doesn't show a question mark, but I think he should have went to g2, and you're going to see why here. After h5, king to f2, b6, f5, king to b7, knight, h takes, rook checks. Now if he had gone his king here before, that check would not be there, and it ends up being a huge deal. Why that wasn't questioned by the computer, I really don't know. King to g3, rook takes, knight to h7. Now what he's looking at here is, he's looking at picking up a piece. Now this is Fabiano Caruana, who just recently reached 2,800 and just dropped back down. He's one of the top 5 players in the world. I don't understand this at all. He doesn't really lose a piece, and you'll see why. c5, knight takes, bishop c6, f6. If he had played knight to d7 instead, rook checks, king to f4, rook to h8. I think that would have caused a lot of problems. Even though White is up a piece for a pawn, he only has a third of a pawn advantage, and that's not good for White. After f6, rook to g2 check, king to f4. That was his other mistake. What he should have done instead of king to f4 was go king to h3, g takes, bishop to h6. Probably should have been the way to go. Even though White's up a piece for 2 pawns, the score is almost a full pawn ahead for black. After king to f4, g takes, e takes, rook to f2 check, king to e3. Now you're going to see coming up with the next few moves some very, very good tactics from Mickey Adams as black. Probably instead of king to e3, I think king to g3 would have been better. Then after rook takes, bishop, rook to f3 check, king to h4, rook takes f8, bishop takes, rook to e8. That would have been over a 2-point advantage for black. I think where white went wrong was earlier, instead of going king to f2, he should have went king to g2. But these Berlin defenses are, they've got theory down to move 20 and 30 on some of this stuff. You could sit down with Vladimir Kramnik, former world champion in the Berlin, and go through the theory ad nauseum, especially at this world-class level. So I'm a little surprised that king to f2 was made by Fabiano Caruana, who just reached 2,800 yesterday, and or either that or the day before, which is, I believe, the third or fourth person in history that's ever reached 2,800. And he's going to drop back down. I think he had 2 losses in a row. But it's unfortunate. After king to e3, rook takes f6, knight to h7. Now, if he had gone knight to d7, rook to f3, check, king, rook to e8, and that would have been almost a 3-point advantage for black. White's hurting there. Knight to h7, rook to f3 check, king to d2. Now you're going to see some slick tactics by Mickey Adams as black. Rook to d8 check, king to c2. If he had gone e2, it went rook to h8, knight to d5, rook to h3, with almost a 2-point advantage for black. Now look at the position here. This is where tactics come in. This is where these guys are so good, besides their level of resistance. Either pause the video here, or I want to give you a few seconds to look at it. What would you do as black here? Take a good hard look. And of course the move is rook takes c3 check. Bishop takes, pawn takes c3. If bishop a4 check, king to b2, rook takes d1. If bishop had taken d1, would have been interesting. Bishop to g5, f6, bishop takes, rook to d2 check. Would have been interesting. After rook to d1, takes d1, bishop to g5, knight to c6. I think maybe knight to g6 might have been a better way to go. And then would have went knight to f6, knight e5, rook takes, bishop takes, king to a1. But almost a 4-point advantage for black. I mean, look at white's position. It's just horrendous. He's got 1, 2, 3 isolated pawns. You've got 1 and 1 on this side. Then you've got these 4 coming down the chute. Bad, bad, bad. After knight to c6, rook takes, bishop takes. Now this is going to be really slick what's coming up here. Some more great tactics by Mickey Adams. Bishop to f4, bishop takes g4, knight to f6, bishop f3, knight to e8. Now it looks like Caruana is going to pick up this pawn, which he does. But what happens to that knight? You'll see. Knight to a5, knight takes c7. Now it shows a 3 1/4 advantage for black. He's 2 pawns up, but you think maybe with opposite color bishops you might be able to draw this. Bishop to c6, well, the computer knows what we don't, and that is that knight is doomed. King to c2, king to c8, Now this bishop is stuck on this diagonal, protecting that knight. King to d3, king to d7, king to c2. a3 doesn't really change much. So you just go f6. After king to c2, knight to c4, knight to a6. If he had gone king to bishop 3, that really wouldn't have done much. Knight to d6, that knight is still doomed. Knight to a6, bishop d5 check, king to b2, knight to c4 check, king to b3, knight to e5 check, discovered check, c4, knight takes c4, and it's even worse. After knight to a6, bishop to b7, now the knight is doomed. Knight to b8 check. Knight to c7 doesn't really save anything, because after a6, king to b3, knight a5 check, king to c2, b5, and that bishop is still tied down to this knight. This bishop has to stay to keep the knight in check, but this knight here will get free run of the board, and it's like being a piece up. After knight to b8 check, king to c8, king to d3, and b5. And this is where Fabiano Caruana, Italian-American, just recently 2,800 rated, resigned. I thought it was a great endgame by Mickey Adams. It took a boring Berlin defense and made it interesting. Well, I think with these younger guys, sometimes what happens is the more experienced players like Mickey Adams will get the queens off the board early, and these guys know their end games and they know their tactics, especially end games. It was beautiful how he trapped that knight. It's just a well-played game by Mickey. I'll call him Mighty Mickey today. Well, that's it, folks, for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I probably won't have a video, maybe one more before I leave. I'm going to be leaving to go to Wisconsin in the Midwest United States to play in the U.S. Open. I hope to get some videos and some games there, my games, and hopefully some other high-rated players' games. For those of you outside the United States, Wisconsin is the top north, mid-United States, just west of the Great Lakes, just below the Canadian border. It's beautiful there. It's going to be great. I hope to come back with some good games for you. Just want you all to remember, if you think chess is just a game, you're not playing it right. And I hope to see all of you in the next video. And please comment and please subscribe. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.